Well, Lindsay, thank you for joining us. It's a couple of weeks now since your new role with the Knights has been confirmed. Could you just tell us how it's been for this first couple of weeks, but also just give us some insight into what it is?
Yeah, it's been pretty hectic to be fair. I've been down a couple of times now to the girls' training sessions, which have been really good, really positive. And I'll obviously try to get to know everybody behind the scenes at the club and really make sure that our visions are aligned and hit the ground running with this weekend, obviously.
And you'd been obviously successful in your previous coaching job with Cass. What was it about York and what they're doing that attracted you to this new challenge?
I was just really impressed with the ambition of the club and John Flatman in particular. He's really wanting to invest in driving the standards of the provision for the girls at York, but across the Women's Super League as well. So, he's really keen to set the standard as high as possible in terms of the provision that he wants to offer the girls. And I guess he saw me as a good person to come in and support that vision. Yeah, it's a massive challenge, obviously. But it's also a big opportunity for me and one that I couldn't turn down.
We've spoken quite a bit previously about York being a club on the rise in terms of the men's team and the new stadium and what they're trying to do in the championship. How encouraging is it and how good is it for the women's game that the club are taking the women's team with them in that kind of upwards trajectory?
This was a big part of what myself and John spoke about, and he admittedly says that in the past few years he hasn't done as much for the women's team as he should have done. He's focused on the men, he's focused on the stadium, but now he really wants to put his women's team on the map. And I think it's great for the city. It's great for the development of women's rugby league in that area in the whole of North Yorkshire. And it's an exciting project for me to be part of.
Within the Betfred Women's Super League as it is at the moment, there does seem to be quite an established top four in terms of St Helens, Cass, your Wigans of the world. How far away do you think York are from breaking into that?
Yeah, I think lockdown kind of accentuated the problem more than anything, because the EPU, the England girls, trained quite all the way through it really. So they were, upskilling themselves, keeping themselves fit, probably extending where they were. And the other clubs and the other players who weren't involved with that, obviously because of the restrictions, couldn't train. So I think that's just, made the gap even wider. But yeah, in terms of York's position in that, obviously we want to be up there with the top. We want to be in the top four and make sure that if the Super League does split and does have it is more competitive, that we need to be, find a place next year to make sure that we're part of that. And yeah, it's just planning how we're going to make that look going forward.
How impressed have you been so far by the players and the setup from a rugby perspective at York?
It's difficult, new people coming in, myself, Adam and Callum as new coaches and new faces, but like I said, they couldn't be more welcoming. They're a great, really tight-knit bunch. A lot of them have been together for a long time, but as well, there's some great talent coming through. There's some talent transfers from Rugby Union, which are really exciting. And they have absolutely embraced the changes and the ambition of the club and us as coaches. So, no problems there. And I'm really looking forward to working with that group of girls in particular.
And in terms of the kind of long-term strategy and what you think you could achieve with York, how much does having a World Cup benefit you at the end of this season in terms of attracting new players and getting girls invested in the sport where they perhaps weren't before?
It's the biggest stage, isn't it? It's having a home World Cup is what the sport has dreamt of, and especially with the rise of Women's Super League, we just need to absolutely make the most of it. And York being one of the cities that's hosting 4 of the teams in terms of where they're based, hosting the semi-finals for the women's, it's going to be really on the map, and we need to make the most of it as a club and make sure we sort of reach the potential that it can bring to women and girls rugby in that area.
Let's turn our attentions to the weekend. Wigan in the Betfred Women's Challenge Cup. That's a big test, isn't it?
Yeah, last time Wigan played York, it was 42-0. We've got to look at that game and obviously try and reduce that scoreline and try and make progress towards that. We have every ambition that going into the game, we want to be really competitive. We want to give them a great game, and just try and act out the things that we've been putting into training this week. and just see where we are. It's going to be a great benchmark.
Is it playing the likes of Wigan and those top teams? Is that as much a part of your development and a catalyst for improvement as anything you could do on the training field?
Yeah, it is, because there's always players that play better than they train, and I think sometimes being put in those environments of playing with the best players in the league really kind of sets the standard, sets the benchmark of where we want to be, and that's what I've spoken to the girls about. You know, we are going to be up there. We want to be up there. That's where our line's going to be, and it's up to the players and myself to step up to it and really drive the standards and the culture of the group. But I'm under no illusions. It's going to be a challenge, but like I said, everybody's really buying into it and really ambitious of what we can achieve.
Wigan, of course, such a famous name across all elements of rugby league. Does that make it easier from a coaching perspective to get the girls up for this one? And, you know, it's a real meaningful fixture against one of the top brands of the game.
Yeah, it really is. And, you know, in the terms of rugby league, York is probably nowhere near a name as Wigan Warriors. But if we can go there and turn some heads, it's getting broadcast, and there'll be a lot of eyes on that game. We just need to make sure we go there and turn up and, like I said, put into practice what we've been doing in training, and I'm sure we will.
As you alluded to there, it's live and exclusive, of course, across the Sportsman.com. Fantastic, isn't it, that we're getting so many eyes on the women's game now on such a regular basis? We'd obviously rather have crowds there, and this tendency to live streaming is probably one of the things that's come out of the pandemic. But as a positive, there's going to be a lot of people watching that game that probably otherwise wouldn't have done.
Yeah, it is, and the amount of attention that we're getting is fantastic, and that's probably one of the reasons that John and the Club of York have really wanted to invest in this. You know, like you say, the scorelines last weekend weren't the most watchable, and York probably are one of the more underachieving clubs that if we are going to make this successful over the next 5 or 10 years and really kick on in women's sport like football, cricket, rugby union has, we've got to, you know, all the clubs have got to buy in and push the game forward. So to be part of a club that does have that ambition and isn't just settling for ticking a box and having a women's team, that's going to be massive going forward. And hopefully other clubs will look at what we're going to do at York and will step up.